Welcome, everyone. I'm Barbara Tien, and I'm delighted to welcome you here today to our fifth of six Project Kin project parties during Roots Tech. We're delighted to have you. And today we have a very special guest in Sindi Terrien, who is joining us from outside of Boston and to share with us fun with genealogy. You may know her from the talk that she did for us as a project recipe earlier this year, talking about genealogy projects and specifically how to write your own activity book for kids about genealogy. And this time she's going to be sharing with us all about having fun, just making it fun for everyone with genealogy. I'm going to go ahead in our limited 30-minute program to turn it over to Terrien, Cindy, reminding you that we will take these as a 30-minute program recorded, and then we'll turn off the recording to keep it tight for those watching it online, and then allow for another after party as conversation continues, and something everybody seems to enjoy, and it seems to work out quite well, and it's delightful to have you all here. So with that, Cindy, let me turn it over to you.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm really pleased to be here again and talk about one of my favorite subjects, genealogy, especially as we all know. Not everybody is as excited about listening about genealogy as we are, and that includes our closest family members. My premise for trying to introduce fun to genealogy is because as we grow older, we want to pass what we have on to somebody else, and preferably someone in our family, if not a close friend or relative. Um, but not everybody has that natural instinct that we have and want to move along. Although Carla, you were kind of pulled in at a later time whenever you got into genealogy. But there, everybody gets pulled in one way or another. So to me, it's looking for fun, how to draw fun. And Anne Schutz has a great idea about having fun with genealogy using scavenger hunts, which I have a different take on how to do a scavenger hunt, but I love the way she has her scavenger hunt. I think it's Daniel, I forgot his last name, but he had something to do with playing cards to introduce your family to having fun with genealogy, and I had an idea about that. But I want to focus more about on the technique of finding what works for your family. So we have, instead of what's fun for us, we have to think about what's fun for them. So in my husband's family, they would just be happy sitting in front of the TV watching a football game, a baseball game, or golf. They do not want to go to a library and do research. They don't want to get online and do research. They like the passivity of watching a game. So how can I draw them into the interest of genealogy if that's their focus? Well, my thought is when I see a professional sports person's name, if that name is in our genealogy tree, whether it's my family tree or his family tree, I say, hey, I wonder if they are if they're a relative of us. Maybe we share a common ancestor. Let's go do the research. Maybe that will draw them in at this point. Maybe not, but maybe it is. I've talked to several of my family members and I've asked them, why do you let me continue to talk to you about genealogy when it's not your passion? What is it about what I am saying that doesn't make you walk out the room and shut me down? And many of them have told me it's the story and the connection to the past and learning something about the family that they weren't aware of before. They all like the surprise stories. My family in particular, they want to know about the murders. They want to know about just the surprise. And I got my husband's brother really kind of surprised me when he told me that he was interested in the family stories because I didn't think that he was. And then it made me realize there is another way to draw people in. And some of us are great at research, but not many of us are great at writing or telling the story. So maybe another way of getting family drawn into genealogy is you say, I've done this research, I have all these facts and figures, but I don't know how to tell the story. Can you help me tell the story? And then if they help you tell the story, then they may get drawn in like Carla was with her father because she had to do something for him. And then all of a sudden, things clicked. So those are a couple of things, you know, um, ideas I have about where we need to, what we need to focus on instead of just telling them what we did today and what little nugget we found. We need to find them what is fun for them. So the other things that I thought about was, you know, there's a lot of different words, and Barbara, you and I kind of talked about this last week. What is fun? What do people classify as fun? So I went and looked at the dictionary, and I picked up some words that I thought, you know, classify as fun: laughter, merrymaking, gaiety, whoopee, joy, enthusiasm. You know, just having curiosity is the one that Barbara picked up on. So when you think about your family and when you go to a family event, what is it that makes fun for your family? So in my family, there's a couple of things. One, it's always food, as everybody knows. Two, recently we've started a Lego weekend that we've never done together before. They all like to dance. So what are some of the things that you can bring into um, to genealogy that has to do with maybe dancing? All right, well, maybe we need to learn we're Cajun, um, have more Cajun music in our in the background as music whenever we're in family events. We don't do that. But I could do that. I could say, let's do that and bring in our family background, the customs previously. We've just kind of lost that as we've moved on. And as generations go forward, you know, and we're more exposed to the outside world, we kind of lose the customs that we are presently in. The other thing that a friend of mine mentioned, her name is Vanessa. She and I are in an accountability group. We meet every week to talk about what we've done for the during the week, what our goals are, and then where we are on accomplishing those goals. And she talked about movies. So if your family is one that likes to watch movies, when you're watching a movie such as Mutiny on the Bounty, did you have any family members that crossed the ocean during the 1780s? I did. So I can look at that, I can point to that ship. It's not perfect, but I can say, hey, you know, our ancestors were on a ship similar to that. Or if I were Scottish and my family was at the Battle of Culloden, we could go and watch the movie Braveheart, although I hear that's not the perfect story for the Battle of Culloden. Or you can watch other movies similar to that and say, hey, our family was doing that. And those of us from the United States that had ancestors that were in the Revolutionary War, there are many movies that they could watch, and you can say, hey, here we had, you know, I wonder if our patriot ancestor was wearing that kind of uniform or whatever. And it could just, you know, kind of pull people into thinking about genealogy differently because you've kind of made it something else relate to it and that they can understand it. So with that, do you have any questions or any thoughts, discussions? I don't want to make it all me.
I mean, one of the things that I personally enjoy, and so I tend to share it, is ethnic foods that come from the countries that, you know, and I think everybody's probably got some of those things.
Right.
You know, and my grandmother was famous apparently for her donuts. I was too young when she passed. I have no memory of that, but I hear these people, even not relatives, oh, your grandmother's donuts were the best. So I luckily have her handwritten recipe, but
All right.
So I tried making donuts. So those are Grandma Kenyon's donuts. It's a fun thing that, and little people, they can help make whatever that is. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yes. And then you tell them the story of, well, Grandma made them. I don't know her, but I'm still carrying
Right.
on this tradition. Yes.
All that. Mhm.
Anybody
I
else
love
have
it.
anything? Go ahead.
I
Hi,
think
Anna.
that sometimes it is about seizing the moment. I used to live in UK for 21 years. My sister still lives there. She's married to an Englishman. When it comes to Christmas, especially when we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate on Christmas Eve with Swedish traditions and on Christmas Day with British traditions.
Oh,
And it always gives, situations where grandchildren and children ask questions.
Right.
And around family friends that turn up, they ask questions, and people try to, tell how it was when they were children and growing up in different countries with different traditions, and look at that Christmas tree holder, for example. When I was little, it was with my grandparents, and then it still worked, and you would draw it up and it would turn the tree around and play a melody.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But the difference was that when the Christmas tree was there with the grandparents, they didn't have electrical lights in, they had real Christmas lights,
yeah.
real candles in the tree.
Candles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So and why are there flags at the top of the tree on the pictures, the old pictures that you're showing us, and not a star or an angel? So in the Scandinavian countries, you tend to have the Scandinavian flags,
Wow.
the Nordic flags at the top, like a
Oh,
crown.
wow. Huh.
So
Interesting.
that can lead into in a fun way. You share your experiences and you can build on it. And then the next year, the Scottish family coming to share Christmas Eve celebrations with us would say, oh yeah, we want this and this from the Swedish traditions, and can you have that Swedish Christmas music where you dance around the Christmas tree and things like that. So it builds on from there. So I think
So there's that joy and that gaiety that you can then talk about family, because it's fun at that moment. And so now people, because they're having fun, are more likely to listen to whatever tidbit of genealogy that you have that you want to share and draw them into. And one of the other discussions Barbara and I had, and I think it's on my recording, is, like I said, we have to go to where they are. So if we're trying to bring in children today, I mean, there's a ton of kids that are into Dungeons and Dragons. And 20, 30 years ago, when Dungeons and Dragons was first introduced, it was a big taboo. And but now it's a very widely fantasized, a lot of people are in it. But you could create what they call a campaign of, when your family was migrating from one country to another country, or whatever it is that they did, and you create that campaign for that age group or whoever it is that's doing that, so that they're having fun, but they're also learning something at the same time. And you may find out that you enjoy Dungeons and Dragons just as much as them, and have a new pastime. So those are the things that I'm thinking about whenever I'm trying to get people in my family more interested in my pastime, so that I can share what I have, and it's not going to be in a box that gets dumped one day because I couldn't find anybody else in the family to listen. I don't know if I told you this, but after I wrote my little book, Genealogy Fun, while developing new genealogists, two of my nieces read the book, and both of them contacted me afterwards and said, I do want to learn more about genealogy. I'm not ready immediately because they're still, their kids haven't left the nest completely. But I do want to take it on. So, don't forget me. So that was nice to hear.
Yeah.
Yes, Barbara.
Oh, Marcy.
Oh,
Thank you. Sorry. One thing that I discovered with my husband's family is that one of his cousins has a beautiful family picture. And I want to thank Anna for putting up her family picture in the background, because it's so telling. And it's the type of thing that Jean's cousin had and had made into a puzzle. And our grandchildren aren't old enough to do Dungeons and Dragons or that sort of thing yet. So,
yeah.
So the puzzles are a good thing. And I was thinking maybe to do a few. And the three of them, even though the youngest is almost 5, could work at putting the puzzles together and ask questions.
So Marcy, in my book, I do talk about the puzzles. And one of the things that I think you could do with the puzzle is you have a picture with family members that not everybody would know who they are, but you ask them to identify them as they're putting together, and maybe then they have to figure out who it is and learn how to find out, what questions to ask so that they can learn who these other people are. And then you can also, if you give it to 3 different, if you had 3 sets of grandchildren, you could give each family the puzzle. And then whichever family finished it first and could identify all of them, they win a prize. So you always make it a competition, because family A is never going to let family C beat them. So that's just another idea about the puzzle. I've used the puzzle a couple of times because when we have a big family events, we almost always take a group picture, and people look different over the years. So it's going to put there's always that. Is that really Cindy or is that Carrie? Because last year. And then my mother was notorious for wearing the same thing every year. So I was like, oh, so what year was it? Because mother was wearing this every year.
Clever.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcy. Let's see.
I do love your reference, Cindy, to customs right at the top, because customs winds in both the concept of culture, as Anna was referring to Scottish and Swedish and so on, as well as traditions that you have and make up as a family, things like we always do the puzzle. And now that we watch a new generation having kids, a generation who went through college and high school with an internet and played games like Settlers of Catan and Oregon Trail and things like that we never experienced as kids.
Right.
This is a new generation that's raising their kids with this fluid dynamics through the internet, through digital access to information that never happened before. And that creates all these new ways to, again, going back to the core idea of conveying the concept, conveying the customs and cultures. Absolutely wonderful.
So it brings me to mind about customs and culture and food that was brought up earlier. Is I'm Cajun. Although I grew up in Texas, my family migrated from Louisiana in the early 1900s, and gumbo is a big deal for food at every event. And there is a specific way to make gumbo. You have to make a roux, which involves cooking the flour down properly until you want to get it to a certain degree, shade of darkness, which is hard to get without burning. And then you add onions and peppers and celery. So I still make my roux and not my gumbo the traditional way. But as technologies come along, now there is roux you can buy in a jar, and you don't have to cook your own roux. So I have a sister who makes her gumbo with fake roux. So whenever I'm down, I make sure I bring my, I make my roux, and I cut. My nephew, he buys the frozen peppers and onions and celery already cut up. I do everything fresh. So they have to tell me whether or not it's true. Mine's better than theirs because mine's made from scratch with love. I didn't go and do it halfway. So that's a fun competition again in there, because whose gumbo is best? Whose donuts are better? Did, grandma's were perfect, but who in the family can make the donuts almost as good as she?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think there was a subtle trick that Anna shared when she did her talk on scavenger hunts about family competition, in the sense that, yes, the competition is sort of built into a family where everybody is a slightly different age, but we're all close enough and we all experience the same things. But
Right.
there's a delicate balance in keeping competition fun and healthy. And that's I shared earlier the link so you can go see that. But I think that's so subtle, and having a little game or something that everybody enjoys as prizes to those kinds of things is such a wonderful insight to always keeping it fun.
So yes, with the links you said, it makes me think, it's very easy to go online and find activities. It is and it isn't easy to find activities that are genealogy oriented to present to your family to get them interested. But I just want to come back to say, we still need to figure out what makes them tick and what they think is fun versus what I think is fun. If we don't know what they think is fun, we're going to be just hitting that real brick wall all the time. So
what's your trick to finding what they think is fun?
Well, first of all, I did ask several people. So like I said, I know my husband's family, they like to watch sports. So I have to do something. Did we have, I think my sister-in-law found a newspaper article with someone with our last name that had been a professional baseball player in the early 1900s. Okay, but he really didn't turn out to be our relative, but it had her going down that road because he had the same last name. Like my son, he likes to find out about the surprises, who, we had actually we have 3 where people had killed somebody else. One it was manslaughter. One, it was because the husband found out his wife was possibly sleeping with another man. Now this was in the 1600s. There was an argument at a VA home in the early 1900s over over a baseball game, and one of the men killed the other man. So it's just so my kids like, okay, and it's in the newspaper, so it's fun, that brings them in. So the surprises, the criminals, drama, for criminals, if you have the police people in your family, the wardens of the state or law enforcement, you would want to, use that connection to find stories for your family and so forth. So anyway, it's just trying to find what is of interest to them versus you.
I always remember the 5th grade classroom when the little kids would get excited about the dark ages and torture chambers and ghoulish things. There's somebody somewhere has a little list of the things that get a middle schooler excited.
Yeah,
those are
right.
the hooks to look for. In fact, I've got a friend who's a middle school teacher, come to think of it. She's I need to ask her that.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm sure she has more to bring to you to help you find out what it is that helps, draws their interest.
Well, I think it's kind of a universal, isn't it?
Right. And that 5th grade, 4th, 5th, 6th grade is when the schools try to bring in the genealogy concept to the kids. So, just be ready to share as much as they'll let you share when it's time to do that genealogy project. I don't know in the UK, I'm sorry, Anna, and Sweden, but in the United States, when they're like 10, 11, that they start that project.
Do you happen to know if it's part of like the Common Core kind of work?
Not really, but the New England Genealogical Historical Society does have a curriculum that they created, and it's free. You don't even have to be a teacher to get it. You can just go to their site, and they have a curriculum geared for all ages from 1 to 12. They even have a yearly and annual writing contest for the high school, the students, to try and get the kids more interested in their family.
Yeah. I know what do they call those? Lineage societies also do writing challenges and things like essay contests.
Right.
To get folks focused on that. Very cool.
I think you do it in school in Sweden as well. But because I've been a youth and community worker for many, many years in 2 different countries, it's finding the fun way and finding how to get them interested in whatever it is, whether it's genealogy or anything else. You learn how to read your group and what turns them on, basically. And whether that is when they come home and talk about, oh, it's so boring, we're reading about Titanic again in school. And then you say, oh, by the way, do you know that you actually have an ancestor who was on the boat? And all of a sudden, it's a total different thing for them.
Right.
Because it's personal.
So what you're saying is that finding out that each group is slightly different in terms of things that'll get them excited. And that the thing that gets them excited is how it connects to them. Is that what you're saying?
Quite often it is how it connects to them. If they can relate to it, it makes it much, much easier to reach them.
Yeah.
And it's not only young people, it's the same with adults. It has to relate, but it has to be fun. So it's like when I do the quiz, the questions have to be written in a fun way. They have to be, really stupid, or, like who has the biggest shoe size, and you give them 3 options and they have to guess, and anyone can guess right. Unless it's 3 people who are there and they are going to go around and measure.
Yeah.
But that is fun as well. So it's about, and then when you talk about the answers, you make it as a fun story, and you tell and you make jokes. So it's a stand-up comedy, more or less. That way, it's not boring, and it's not the norm, because lots of people in Sweden, for example, but also in the UK, would see genealogy, when you say that, it is, it's for elderly people. And they see these stats, and they see these, schemes about what it looks like, and written up, and if you take the Bible, for example, and start reading in the Old Testament, you come to that part where there is hundreds and hundreds of pages, who is related to whom, in what ways, and and their children, and they married that, and their children. That's what people think of when you say it. Therefore, you need to make it trendy and make it different.
Surprising.
It's
surprising.
In Sweden started becoming more and more popular because of the DNA. Because in Sweden, when you take DNA, there's still people in Sweden who take it for the ethnicity, which is rubbish, basically. But if you use it the right way, you can solve a lot of mysteries in your families. And there has been lots and lots of TV programs in Sweden around this, where people got, like, detectives go out and they find missing parents and stuff like that, and grandparents, and they tell stories, and they found this thing, how a sperm donating doctor was sort of they had been taking sperms from people who hadn't donated but had given sperms for other reasons.
Wow.
And used it, and they found out then that there were lots of people who then had biological children that weren't aware of it,
Wow.
and all the implications of that. So because it's lots of things happening, and also with this, that you can use DNA and genealogy to find criminals. Like we have examples both in Sweden and in the US of this. It makes it more interesting, more popular,
Right.
which means that you have more and more people who then starts researching again,
Right.
and more younger people as well.
Yeah. It's that curiosity.
Yeah.
Curiosity, novelty. We're novelty hunters at the end of the day, aren't we?
Right. Right.
Forgive me for interrupting. We've just tipped past the 30-minute mark. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording. And thank you all for tuning in. We're
Thank
going to
you for
turn it off,
having
and we're going to stay here for the after party and enjoy that. But I'm going to keep those recordings tight. Thank you again.
Okay.